Okay, I guess we'll get in here the state of the race after the vice presidential debate. It was a very more of a standard political debate last night than the first presidential debate. I think that the consensus, I think, is pretty much that the uh, vice president Mike Pence won the debate, and I guess I'm not sure what impact the fly had, but at any rate, the press seems to be kind of obsessed with the fly. At any rate, I don't think that Pence even knew the fly was there. But I think this shows you kind of what I was talking about on the previous debate reconsidered. Um, the fact that the kind of the style of thing that I think you should do in a debate, and I think Mike Pence was great. He tended to infiltrate the issue at times rather than frontal assault the way that President Trump did, and I think that's an important aspect of it. He's also came well armed with facts and positions, and I think hit most of the key things he wanted. He, he um, he artfully dodged, as did she, certain questions. And the only thing I think was unartfully dodged was the issue of packing the court, which by the way contains a lot more with it. You can't pack the court without ending the legislative filibuster, and that means it's anything a simple majority wants to do can be done, and we're going to have a lot of laws, a lot of restrictions, and a lot of programs that we wouldn't have otherwise if they get in and get control of both branches of Congress and the presidency. And I think hopefully that was sort of brought across. And I don't know, she made a variety of emotional appeals about the number of deaths. The moderator threw out something that, again, was blatantly false. Remember, all moderators in these debates are Democrats. It seems that's a rule, right? And if there is a Republican, the Republican generally has to be very restrained, right? But for instance, the idea that the per capita death rate, which I guess is probably the way to see the real impact of the measure of the coronavirus epidemic, she makes a comparison of Canada and the United States, but I mean, you could also make a comparison to certain parts of the United States that are similar to Canada, to Canada, and you probably get a similar result. The fact of the matter is, if you look at Europe, which is a reasonable comparison, I think we compare very favorably on per capita fatality rates. And Pence failed to bring that up, which I thought, being a leader of the coronavirus task force, he would have that data at his fingertips. Maybe he just didn't think it was worth bringing up, or maybe didn't think about it, or maybe it was just a little too harsh to address the issue. But the fact of the matter is, like Germany is doing better, but like UK, France, and Spain are doing a lot worse. I think the average of the EU is worse. The fatality rate is just a little bit higher in Sweden. On the other hand, they didn't destroy their economy and lifestyle over it. So, in other words, about the same level of damage per capita, but they're still a fully functioning system. So I didn't go through all this lockdown stuff. If you take the extreme measures like Australia did, you might get a better result. But does anybody really want to go through that? That's a good question. Anyhow, let's get off the virus. I think that was one of the big issues. I think that Pence handled it effectively, and I think he scored some big points on foreign policy. And so it is a Pence win. However, the question is, what impact does a VP debate have on a presidential race anyhow? Historically, not a lot. I mean, when you have a disaster like the one with Dan Quayle in 1988, it didn't really prevent George Bush, not 41, from achieving a very solid 54, I think 46 victory, something like that. So I don't, but hopefully it did get some issues out, particularly the one about packing the court, which I think is that, and the ancillary consequences of doing that, I think probably should be the issue going on in. I mean, really, that's what's going to change America for the long term if it happens, not these other issues which are transitory. Okay, state of the race, I want to address that. is I was kind of looking to get enough polling in to get an idea of what the consensus is. And it's really looking kind of bad. The Real Clear Politics average of polls, which is kind of the standard benchmark, has Biden ahead by 9.7%. Included in there is a poll that was released yesterday by Fox News, which has Biden ahead by 10%, 53 to 43. So, and then we have the latest Rasmussen poll yesterday, which has Biden ahead by 12%, which I think is 52 to 40. And in that one, they have 4% for other candidates, 4% undecided, which is very surprising to me that Rasmussen is showing this kind of result, because if there are these hidden Trump voters, their technique should draw them out better than anybody else's technique, where you have human colors. So that's a bit of a blow. On the positive side, we still have the latest IBD tip poll, which has a 3% advantage for Biden, which is getting close to the margin where you might be able to score electoral victory if you were lucky. So it looks like it's Biden's to lose right now. We need, obviously, Trump, as I tweeted to Trump yesterday, we can't afford any more mistakes. I really can't. If you're going to win, we've got to run a very slick campaign from here on out, or we're in real trouble. So now it's hard to know what to believe about this. There's also a Zogby poll that was taken, released on Sunday, which was taken right after the coronavirus diagnosis, which had a very tight race of 2%, with Biden 49 to 47. So I don't know, Zogby is never included in the Real Clear Average of Politics, so I guess it's considered to be kind of an outlier poll. I don't know. It's been around for a while. It has a history of being right sometimes and wrong other times. So I wouldn't put a lot of confidence in that. But, it's a data point. Hopefully, Trump needs to do a different type of debate prep for the future. Now, right now, that's in question because the commission's decided to turn into a virtual debate. And, of course, Trump immediately, in his natural way of behaving, immediately rejected it. But understand with Trump, that could be a negotiation tactic. I don't see any reason why they can't have an in-person debate, actually. Because Trump should be over the virus by that time. The real issue is how well he'll be functioning, and he claims he's doing great right now. So, he's had the most advanced medicines that have been developed, and it seems like it's worked. So, knock wood on that one, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of inclined to think that the problem with the virtual debate, as I see it, is the possibility of Biden cheating. I mean, if he's in his own location, how do we know he isn't being fed answers, or there isn't some kind of a prompter up telling him what to say? So I kind of agree with the idea that if each campaign could have an observer from their own team present, just to observe and to raise a red flag if anything inappropriate is happening. A Biden observer, of course, with Trump at the White House, I guess, and a Trump observer at Biden wherever he is, I guess, in Delaware. So if that would seem to be a workaround that should make sense. And I don't know. In a way, I think constraining Trump a little bit, might be not all that bad. I mean, the last debate, he thinks he won it, but there's the overall balance of polling suggests that in the way it really matters, that is how the audience reacted to it, it was a failure. And that was why I said early on, you have to kind of wait till it's after and see how all the spin plays out and see what the real reaction of the public is before you know what the real impact is. And basically, I would recommend that he back off the idea of trying to bully Biden and move more toward the idea of letting Biden speak and hope he'll stick his foot in his mouth. That's probably a better strategy. And the other thing that Trump obviously needed to do on the first debate, and probably even here, is to present his case to a wider audience than would normally be listening to Fox News or OAN or some other conservative source. Because a lot of those people really don't know the facts. The news on the mainstream media has really been not covering a lot of key things that people should know about. And the advantage of, for instance, Fox, whether you like it or lump it, it does tell you what the other networks are saying, so you pretty much know everything. Maybe you don't have the emotional propagandistic effect they would be giving you, but you know what they're saying. And if it strikes your interest, you can know where to go look to find out more about it. So I think the Fox viewer is a more informed viewer, I believe. It's just my opinion. So that's where we are, and we'll see whether Trump can make a comeback. After all, he was down at about this point in the 16 campaign and made a comeback and managed to win. But again, a lot of negative stuff has happened here. One, from his point of view, I guess positive from Biden's. One is the third-party candidates seem to be a much minor player than before. They usually vanish in the final vote to 1 to 2%. And they didn't in 16, and it was 5.9%, which meant a lot of people, I think, just punted and didn't like either candidate and helped Trump win. So that's there's going to be less of that this time. Right now, we're looking at numbers like 3 to 4, and we don't know if they'll really vote that way or not. I mean, historically, there's always that amount of people, but it's just another version of undecided sometimes. The Democrats seem to have a lot of money this time. And I don't, so much for the Republicans being the party of the rich, huh? Of course, I've been criticizing that idea since 12, 15 years ago. So apparently the Republicans like the idea of being the party of rich and don't want to flat out say it. But I think that they need to focus the campaign more on, first of all, above all, the issue of the Democrat threat to change the fundamental constitutional system by rigging the Supreme Court. Because once you do that, either they'll be able to lock themselves into a generational majority, which is my real fear. If they fail to do that for whatever reason, but mess with the court, then it's almost inevitable that the Republicans, if they were able to get back in, would then respond and rig it back the other way. And so the whole system of some kind of an objective court, the pretense would be completely lost. Right now, it's sort of pretense, but at least it's being maintained to some degree. Well, that would totally destroy it. And in fact, I think, by the way, I'd like to add this in here just for comment to people. I think one of the reasons John Roberts has become kind of a swing justice in recent years isn't because he isn't conservative at heart, but he really feared exactly what the Democrats are threatening right now. I think he was looking ahead to it and thought by moderating and making certain decisions against his own ideology, he would be able to avoid that happening. Which may actually help the Republicans in some of the court cases over the voting procedures and all, because obviously the Democrats are threatening to do it now. So since they've let that genie out of the bottle, that might push him back a little bit in the direction of the Republicans. Just a thought. But we'll see. I mean, as always, who knows? What's happened this year is just a bit much. So, that's kind of where the state of the race is now. Trump needs to find a way to rebound. The question is, can he get back on the campaign trail? I mean, obviously he should shortly be over the virus within a few days and test negative a couple of times. So that's I think will be available. But then there's a political impact. Do you hold mass rallies after this like we did before? What happens to the show up? Does that stay the same or does it get worse? I don't know. And what's the political blowback for doing it? Or will he try to do things more virtually? Doesn't seem to be his style. But we'll see what he does. I mean, he has done a little video the other day where he kind of come out and said, look, hey, I kind of used one of these experimental drugs that most people don't get to use, and I'm going to work hard to make it available to everybody and make it free, as well as, of course, Ritonavir. So, if I pronounced that right. So, at any rate, it does help get the treatment of the disease supported, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good political point. I don't know how much it will help them. Every little bit helps or hurts depending on which way it goes. So we'll just have to buckle up and wait and see what happens. what I would say, and finally here, is what is absolutely the most critical in all of this is that is the Senate. I mean, all the really bad, extremely dire things I've discussed in several of these videos can be avoided if the Republicans maintain even a marginal hold on the Senate throughout the first 2 years of the next administration, particularly in the event that Biden were to win, because the filibuster would remain in place, the court would not be packed, and certain laws that would be passed otherwise would be filibustered and not actually pass. And on the other hand, obviously using reconciliation, Biden would be able to do his tax policies, his financial policies, and a lot of things like that. I'm sure there'd be some levels of compromise if things were that tight, depending on which senators actually won and which ones lost. I mean, Collins, if she wins, would probably vote with the Democrats on a lot. On the other hand, if it's more conservative senators that are at risk, maybe they wouldn't. So that kind of, and one thing that might help us out is that the John James race, for instance, in Michigan, and we should be able to flip Alabama unless everything goes completely to hell. So that could give us a potential increase for the ones we would lose in other more competitive states. So that's about it. We'll stay tuned. If you like these videos, like and subscribe. And forward any links to your friends if you think they'd be interested. All for now.